everyone, and welcome to a webinar hosted by the Cloud Standards Customer Council. Thanks for joining us today. We've just published a new paper. This was just a couple weeks ago in May. This guide was written to help enterprise IT and business decision makers with best practices for developing and growing a cloud-enabled next-generation IT workforce. Very relevant topic with the shift in skill sets these days introduced by cloud computing and related technologies such as big data analytics, AI, data science in general. My name is Tracy Berardi. I'm Program Manager of the CSCC and moderator of the presentation today. I'm joined by three presenters who helped to work on this paper, contributing their time and expertise on this subject of cloud workforce development. Bill Van Order, he's Principal Computer Systems Architect and a Lockheed Martin Fellow. Bill is on the steering committee of the CSCC and was the lead editor on this paper. Jeff Bowman, Cloud Lead and Cognitive Architect at IBM, and Lisa Schenkowitz, Executive IT Architect at IBM. In total, there were 11 CSCC members who helped to write, review, and publish the paper. You'll find the full list of contributors. It's on page 3 inside the document. So if you'd like to download a copy of the paper, there's an attachments and links tab here on BrightTalk. There's a link to the full paper. There's also a PDF download of the webinar presentation from today. We'll be presenting for about 40 or 45 minutes, so we'll have 15, 20 minutes at the end here for Q&A. So as we present, feel free to enter your questions into the questions tab. We'd love to address those towards the end of the presentation. And this talk today and this paper is brought to you by the Cloud Standards Customer Council, an end-user advocacy group dedicated to accelerating cloud successful adoption. And what we do is we work with our large membership base and liaison community, which is comprised of standards development organizations, open source project communities, and end-user companies to publish vendor-neutral guides on important considerations for cloud computing adoption. So this new paper here, boom, there we go, best practices for developing and growing a cloud-enabled workforce is on our roadmap for the first half of this year. And back in March, we published V2 of migrating apps to public cloud services. So you can see here on this chart the papers we published over the last 12 months or so. And if you'd like to get involved, visit our site. It's cloud-council.org. It's a free membership. We have we're closing in on 800 organizations now that have joined the CSCC. When you join, we'll put you on our mailing list so you receive updates when new papers are published. There's also the ability to join working groups to help contribute to the papers. So if you have some expertise in some of these subjects, this year we'll be updating our papers on cloud service agreements and SLAs. And could use your input and experience there. So now I'm going to go ahead and transfer this to Bill. Bill led the paper. This was his idea actually to spearhead some content on this subject, and so Bill will give us a high-level walkthrough. Bill, over to you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Tracy. So as Tracy mentioned, we had a really fine team that we put together. Some of our lessons learned and some of our best practice ideas to assemble a practical reference guide to assist IT managers as well as some of the business decision makers on how to develop and grow a cloud-enabled next-generation IT workforce. And the paper, as well as this presentation today, is going to follow a path of, Jeff is first going to talk to the case for developing a skilled cloud-enabled workforce, and then pass that over to Lisa, who's going to share some of the insights on developing a strategic framework for meeting today's and tomorrow's skill needs, And then Lisa's going to pass that back over to me to bring it home in terms of some best practices for cloud skills training, employee development, and career growth, as well as a summary. So at this point, let me turn it over to Jeff to talk to the case for cloud-enabled workforce.
All right, thank you, Bill. So if you look at the chart, there's a lot of things that the need for infrastructure headcount is going to change. At the bottom, you see security and hosting are up. So any computer science program today has a focus on security. That's not going away. Hosting is a bigger deal just because capabilities keep changing. If you look at some of the things that are going down, the non-cloud hosting is going down in terms of headcount. A large case for that is because things just get easier to do than they used to be. Not like there's necessarily less compute or fewer servers in your data center. It just isn't as hard as it used to be with virtualization, hyperconvergence, these things. So how do we address the changing needs? And, you know, by changing needs, IT is always changing. So the actual transitions aren't new. The reason they're changing is always new. So going to the next slide, really it comes down to training, hiring, and outsourcing. When you mention cloud, people think outsourcing, right? Well, there's always some outsourcing. Really, you can see that the trend in this chart here is that it's really about training, because at the end of the day, you are owning what you do as a company, and you need to be responsible for it and take charge of it. Just giving new tools doesn't mean you need to know how to use them, or it doesn't mean you don't have any responsible for using the new tools. Most of the time it's because you want to do higher value things and add capabilities and make your business better, not just saving money. So moving forward, going back to these things, I mean, when we're talking cloud, what does that mean? Some people might think it's just, you know, some popular public cloud capabilities, but, you know, going back to the definitions and the benefits of cloud computing, some of the reasons for these skill changes are access to the advanced capabilities, these high-value capabilities that companies want to make their organizations better. These might be new technologies, it might be artificial intelligence, analytics, API economy, it might be adding mobile capabilities so more of your employees can do things from their phone, adding more endpoint capabilities, so you have to have agile development to make changes. So that's number one in my books, even though I think it's number 6 on the list. Another thing is when you're an organization and you're switching to a cloud method for at least part of your organization, it's a lot different than when you own some servers and some software and kind of make your experimentation there. You are actually have a checkbook or a credit card or whatever you want, whether it's literally or figuratively, and you're actually spending money as you're using things. So you need to have a handle on how you're spending things when you're doing going from CapEx to OpEx. And so you need to be smart about what you're doing and not do things on the cloud just because they can be done on the cloud. And likewise, you need to do things when you can save money. So economics is a large part of it, and making sure you make the right decisions that are best for your organization and what you're trying to accomplish. Thirdly, and maybe this is another number 1 too, is agile development. And you know, you say that word and people think, you know, of a bunch of heads down developers writing code and adding new capabilities for their IT department, but it's really just adding new capabilities, right? Whatever it is for your company, but whatever the technology, whether it's cloud or something else, in general with IT, things that were really hard now are easy to do. And if you're around long enough in IT, you're going to see almost everything that is really hard and gets a lot of spending of money becomes easier to do down the road, or simplified, or virtualized, or made easier through layers of abstraction. So the agile development helps that, because you're going to spend less time on tasks that are really complicated that get you to the end point. You're going to have a shorter runway and start point to get results. Perfect example of this, and I like the term fail fast, is if you can start a project and see if this is agile, or see if some capability works in your environment, and you can do the POC out in the cloud, and you can find out maybe in a couple weeks or 3 weeks whether it's even works for your organization. So you're not spending 6 months or a year doing budgets and buying a server and adding software and doing all of these things just to find out it doesn't work. You might find that out in a matter of weeks. And you might be, playing around with some things. I know working for IBM, people come to me all the time and say, that's great, I'll try it in your cloud and I'll get back to you and see if we need any help. So, people are trying things fast, they're failing fast, they're getting started fast, and they're seeing tangible results quicker. And just as important, sometimes when they don't see any results, they're seeing that quicker too, so they can waste their time on move to something that is more agile. AI and analytics is a great example of that. So moving forward, I'll hand it off to Lisa.
Thank you, and greetings, everybody. Thank you very much for allowing me to speak with you today, and I hope that you find the information here of value to you. Today I want to talk to you a little bit about the framework that you need to meet your future skill needs and enable a cloud transformation. Any strategy for ongoing cloud skills training ideally aligns with the organization's cloud transformation plans or an existing cloud strategy. What this means is that the adoption of cloud services may be part of a much larger and overall transformation agenda. The transformation can be a company-wide, organization-wide, or at a much smaller scale, so you need to take this into account and consider this as you move forward with your planning. Okay. Onward to slide 9. Okay, so we divided the skills transformation into 6 major steps. The first being understanding the existing culture. If an organization wants to adopt cloud computing as a strategy, it's really important to view it under the perspective of its current culture. This has to include things like understanding the organization's values, people interactions, and a basic understanding of what it is like to actually work in the organization. Then you can use that knowledge as a framework to understand other aspects of the company, such as how easy is it to change IT processes, how easy is it to change or deal with their financial model, ease of changing organizational structure, how mature is it in areas such as automation and IT security, and a basic understanding of what it is to be on the cloud at the leadership level, okay? Because with a lot of companies, you're going to find that at the management leadership level, being on the cloud is a new concept. Okay. Hang on a second. There we go. So, moving onward. The next step is to gain an understanding of what skills that you need to make the transformation a success. It's important to understand that this is not an inventory of the skills that you have on hand. It's an inventory of skills that are required. This means taking a proactive approach to identifying necessary skills and encouraging exploration by stakeholder technical teams. It also means breaking certain legacy barriers and mentality, as some traditional skills might not be needed in the new cloud environment. Some of the things that may be needed that are not there are skills, non-IT skills, such as skills within acquisitions, contract management, business process change, and that comes into play when you have an updated financial model, such as Now you're dealing with operational expenditure versus capital expenditure, and accounting, billing and metrics. Other domain knowledge that might be needed are things like DevSecOps, and you might have, this was previously referred to as DevOps, continuous integration, but with the addition of security, you might now hear it referred to as DevSecOps. Secure operations are a definite factor when you're running on the cloud. Knowledge of IT frameworks and knowledge of IT governance. Right. Okay, step 3 is to understand your existing skill and process gaps. This is where the existing skill inventory comes into play, but it also includes an inventory of processes as well. Hopefully, as part of the previous steps analysis of the skills, you also gain an understanding of some of the processes that are required for your transformation. When you compare your skill inventory with your skill needs, you can start thinking along the lines of an assessment. And some of the things you need to ask are, when you talk to people or different team members, can their existing skills be leveraged? Is there an opportunity for desire or retraining? What skills are entirely missing? What skills exist but are insufficient for the expected demand? You're also going to have to take in some new things into account. It's definitely a brand new world. You're now a cloud consumer. Your portfolio is hosted by somebody else, and a large part of it is no longer under your control. So you're going to have to deal with process and process management skills. In addition, on your side, you're going to have to think along the lines of new processes and procedures and practices. Okay, so step 4 is to get an understanding of what needs to be remediated in order to be successful. Once a complete examination of the skills and process gaps is done, a plan can be devised to remediate the gaps. There's going to be a lot to consider, and you may feel that it's a bit daunting, and it will be, but some aspects of the plan become self-evident based on the data that you gather. For example, a list of personnel that can be more effectively utilized by providing additional training, list of skills that need to be hired, and also reorganization possibilities. Once the data is fully analyzed, you will have a handle on the what of the outcome, and once you know the what, you can focus on the how to get there. So step 5 is remediation planning and execution. Start with an approach strategy and start looking for ways to effectively engage both your current team members as well as ways to entice new talent and skills. Some of the things you might want to consider are better ways to provide on-the-job experience, such as internships, better ways to provide job training, such as apprenticeships, early student exposure to careers in IT. Certification and credentials are always a plus and to validate skills and knowledge, better assessments and methods for evaluating the skills of the job candidates. You're going to then create and then execute the remediation plan, and there's some things you need to consider. There's going to be some parallel paths, including quickly training or hiring resources, putting together a sustainable plan to ensure staff and maintain upgrade skills on an ongoing basis, and lastly, assuring a stream of available new hires with up-to-date technical skills. Finally, step 6 is preparing to embrace change. Believe me when I say that it's going to be an ongoing roller coaster ride, but the most important thing to remember is to adopt a consistent, intentional program to communicate, celebrate, sustain, and embrace the habits of ongoing skills training. Adopt recognition practices and learn to celebrate the success of those individuals and teams who have succeeded in reinventing themselves. Some enablers in this area are engaging and dealing and enabling implementing consistent learning metrics, reviews of up-and-coming technologies, aligning new skill adoption to business success, regular communications to your team and participants in programs and to the organization at large. As I said, consistent ways of reorganizing and rewarding learning, recruitment of long-time employees into skill upgrade programs, and finally, setting expectations during new employee onboarding. So at this point, I would like to turn this over back to Bill.
Thank you, Lisa. So some of the team's best practices that we decided to document in the paper will be presented here now. And our first recommendation was to recognize some of the transformative impact and embrace some of the change. Lisa was talking about some of the new domain skills and process skills that need to be picked up in a cloud-aware type of computing environment. And we definitely see that the traditional IT skills model that's shown here on the left of the slide is evolving, and we're starting to see what Gartner has called a versatilist role, where the IT staff value is really shifting up the service delivery stack, and we'd like to call this the full stack IT skills model, where IT people are not just looked at as being technical experts, but also can offer that business application skills and that business acumen skill training that's needed. We see that cloud computing and some of the associated technology associated with cloud that Lisa mentioned is really an opportunity for IT to shape their role to help guide an organization to become smart consumers of a new service-based technology environment. So that was our first recommendation. Our next recommendation is to share the ownership for rolling out some of the new learning and development programs, and let IT take a key role in crafting some of that cloud education and training program. A Think Time event is just one possible way that you can get the IT team to be thinking about crafting a new cloud education training program. Obviously, factoring in some of the goals and the skills objectives, some of the specific skill needs. Teams will obviously have budget and skill constraints, and you obviously have a target IT staff size that you want to get involved in some of this training. We recommend that you have the team create a curriculum and a training plan that's closely aligned to your cloud deployment plans. And there's just some opportunities that are shown on the right in green of how you can get that training plan instantiated within your organization. So that was our second recommendation. The next best practice that we had identified is there is so much knowledge sharing out there, and there's so much good general purpose cloud platform knowledge, both at the introductory and intermediate level, that you can take advantage of. So you don't really need to reinvent the wheel here when you look out there and survey the different cloud programs that are out there. And then what we recommend is, you leverage as much of what you can find out of the box in terms of training content, and then apply whatever organization unique customizations that may be specific to your operating environment to that basic training. And that can be typically done, at post introductory and intermediate level knowledge training into some of the more advanced training. So a survey of some of the cloud service provider training, whether it's virtual or instructor-led, a number of third-party training resources exist that are identified in the paper. There's massive open online courses that are either free or low-cost specific training. There's a number of certification programs that I'll touch on in a later slide, as well as some online webinars. And then have some of that customizations to those be done at the advanced level within your organization. An additional recommendation that the team has as a best practice for cloud skills training is to make sure that you recognize the accomplishment of those who are willing to take control of their career development. Obviously, there's, every organization has their own type of recognition patterns and programs that they can offer out there. But, make sure that you integrate learning and knowledge training objectives into the performance objectives of your key staff so that you can measure that and recognize that at the appropriate times. That really sends a positive message to the workforce. And then the paper goes through, and this is just a summary snippet of what's available in the paper, a number of specific cloud training and certification programs that are out there that can be leveraged by organizations so that they don't feel that they have to invent all this content from scratch. There's programs that are very much oriented towards whatever cloud platform and provider that you're using. So we recommend using that as a starting point. And as I mentioned before, there's additional programs that are captured in the paper. And then summarizing some of the keys to success is the team feels that this is not necessarily a once and done type of activity, but the transition to the cloud and some of the cloud-related technologies that were mentioned are really part of an ongoing generation shift in IT technology. There's an opportunity for every member of the IT staff that can be taken advantage of here. We feel that that IT can help shape the role of technology and introducing this technology into business, and it can be a real growth and efficiency enabler to an organization and drive the business forward to the next generation. Another recommendation that we had was to leverage all those existing training resources for your general knowledge development and then apply those customizations to your organization's needs. And then, as I mentioned before, this is not a once-and-done activity. Continual learning is part of every job, and it needs to be folded into the performance objectives of each team member within the staff. So at this point, let me turn it back over to Tracy.
Thank you, Bill, and Lisa, and Jeff for that overview. And as a reminder to everyone that's tuned in right now, you can download this, and there's a direct link to the paper. It's a pretty significant paper in the attachments and links tab. And if you have questions, we're about to head into Q&A and have plenty of time, so feel free to pick our brains. And just as a friendly reminder, this is brought to you by the Cloud Standards Customer Council. We invite you to join. The CSCC actually this summer, this program is managed by the Object Management Group, or OMG for short. The OMG is a software standards organization headquartered in Massachusetts, the Boston area. And the OMG launched the CSCC 7 years ago now, back in 2011. And this summer, we're about to announce this, the OMG is going to be turning this into a cloud working group. And so members of the CSCC are invited to continue this work under the OMG umbrella and work more closely with some other standards developing task forces and working groups. So you'll see, come later this summer, at the end of July, we'll have a new online environment, but all of our deliverables, there's 28 of them now, believe it or not, over the course of the last 7 years. Those will all stay where they are. So if you're accessing them now, those links will remain active, and going forward, we'll have a new home base for them. So anyway, all that to say, we very much welcome your participation, and you can do so here. And then, if it's later in the summer, you'll see OMG Cloud Working Group, but it's the same organization. On this next slide, we just went ahead and pulled out, from our library. These are a few other papers. They're referenced in the Cloud Workforce Guide, but just pulling them out because you might find these of interest in your journey. Practical Guide to Cloud Computing was our first ever paper. It's now version 3.0. Practical Guide to Cloud Service Agreements, very important. Security for Cloud Computing. We have a couple papers on security. And then a Practical Guide to Cloud Management Platforms. That was another paper that Bill here helped to lead that we'll be looking to update at some point here in the future. Okay, and let's hop into Q&A. I'm just going to leave us on this last slide here. And I will moderate this, and Bill, Lisa, Jeff, feel free to chime in if one of these strikes you. First question, do you have any recommendations for getting my management to buy into funding a cloud training program?
Hey, Tracy, this is Bill. I'll go ahead and take a first cut at this and ask Lisa and Jeff if they want to jump in as well. I think that what we're seeing is businesses are looking at, reducing their run and operation costs, improving their amount of innovation and their transformation and ultimately their growth. And so I think that, anything that's transformative, such as cloud computing and some of the associated technologies with this new generation of IT, is all about making businesses more efficient, making the turnaround cycle faster, increasing agility. And I think that, by making sure you've got an education program that helps to change the culture and the knowledge base of your workforce is all part of, leading to that increased business efficiency. So I think it's kind of a business imperative that people get on board with the latest trends.
Yeah, and also there's another way to look at it too, is that I think that management needs to understand that this is actually an investment, right? Investing in your skills, investing in the training, right? So there is a certain return on investment that can be expected. Some business cases do hard benefits and soft benefits, so I guess you can consider this a soft benefit. But I think that the important thing is to present it and to position it as an investment in skills and resources.
Any thoughts, Jeff, or I can move on to the next question? We have a few. All right, I'm going to keep going here. It's a morale type of question. What's a good way to get some of my systems administrators who are feeling that their jobs may be threatened by cloud computing to get more excited about this technology?
This is Jeff. I can take that. That's just kind of a continuation of the last one. I would say adding new capabilities. When, of course, making something that's more complicated to do, simplifying that's just the nature and evolution of technology. But being able to do things you've never done before, such as AI, API, economy, maybe doing some NoSQL databases, maybe just doing things IT shops never did before. I know with the organizations I work, the small organizations ask me to do what the larger organizations are doing. And generally, cloud is the big equalizer, so you're able to do that. I know that's personally gets me excited.
Yeah, this is Bill. I totally agree with those sentiments. And also, I think a lot of people got into the IT field because they were excited about technology and continually learning about new technology. So I would kind of frame it as, this is part of just the next generation of technology that, they should embrace and get on board. Otherwise, they may be left behind. And of course, nobody wants to face that.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Next question. What have you found to be the most effective way to change the culture of an organization that is locked into more traditional processes and practices? Do you have any tips for culture change?
I might be able to help with that. I think that engaging people is important in that area, right? This might be a little bit this might be a little bit of a tangent, but getting people together and fostering a collaborative environment, an agile environment, I think will lead to more conversations as to, well, we've always done it this way, as opposed to, well, let's think of something new. So, anybody else want to chip in?
Yeah, this is Bill. There's an interesting quote I read from the American Enterprise Institute that said that, 50 years ago, the life expectancy of a firm in the Fortune 500 was around 75 years. Today, it's less than 15 years and declining all the time. So, to me, that says that the nature of business is changing, and that the culture of business has to adopt and change to the changing patterns. And companies that aren't willing to face culture change and address it head on, sometimes become dinosaurs. We saw that with Kodak and BlackBerry and Borders and a number of other companies that are notable that just don't have the presence that they used to if they're still around.
Great point. Yes. One more question came in here. What do I say to teammates that don't seem to want to invest in education because they think it may reflect badly on their productivity?
That's a good one. I think that's a tough one because management, unfortunately, some organizations have performance tied to their business metrics, so that can be a tough one. And I think that really is a management question because of the fact that they need to have a certain amount of buy-in. If they're going to do this, they need to have an understanding that their business metrics with respect to performance are probably going to go down as people take the time to do education. And as far as talking to and telling the individual people, I would say go for it. I would say go for it. Have a conversation with your management team that says I want to invest in myself in my career, because things are changing so fast in the IT world. The skills that you have today might not be valid 6 months from now, right? So you have to take responsibility for your own career, and you have to go to your management team and express your desire to reinvent yourself. And management teams have to support that, and they have to understand that it might not be, it might affect their business metrics to a certain extent. So that's my 2 cents.
Thanks, Lisa. Mm-hmm.
I mean, working for a technology company, I would say if you're a technology company and you're providing the same business value for the same price over the course of years in technology, you're going to become less significant and less important. And I would say at the individual level, that's true as well, is you want to be making more money, but you want to be providing more value. So, yeah, I would say that's probably not a wise choice from a career standpoint, is to not want to increase the value you can provide for your organization. Mm-hmm. And sometimes in a job where you just need to do a certain task, that's fine. And if there's a lot of demand for that, you're going to be highly valued. But moving forward, you want to make sure you're positioned for the future so you don't get left behind.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Jeff. Thanks, Bill. Thanks, Lisa. Looks like we're out of questions. So we can wrap up a bit early here. Don't forget to grab a copy of the paper and today's presentation from the attachments tab. If you have any other questions or want to have a sidebar conversation about this, feel free to reach out anytime. My email is tracy@omg.org. Very, very easy. You can also hop on our CSCC website and contact us that way. And stay tuned for more content and papers, and please reach out if you'd like to become part of our membership and our network. Thank you again, Bill, Lisa, Jeff, for introducing the paper today, and everyone that logged in. I hope you have a great rest of the day and a good rest of the week.
Thank you, Tracy.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Have a good